What if I told you there's a way to command the road with blistering performance and unparalleled luxury? And I don't just mean any luxury. We're talking about a V12 powered executive missile that could outpace most sports cars. Yeah, it sounds pretty wild, but that's exactly what we built here at Fluid Motor Union with this 2016 S65 AMG Mercedes. But before we dive into the build, let's take a moment to appreciate the history behind this beast. When the S65 debuted in 2004, it was another engineering pinnacle for the AMG division. This car wasn't just about luxury, it was about creating an unapologetic powerhouse that could destroy its competition. With a 6-liter V12 bi-turbo pushing out 612 horsepower and 737 foot-pounds of torque, the S65 AMG was the most powerful production saloon in the world. And it stayed that way in its various iterations until about 2019 when it quietly faded out. Now, you can argue the S680 is the successor or even the electric-assisted S63E, but let's be honest, it just doesn't have the same batshit crazy vibe that the original V12 had. And that's why the S65 remains iconic. I mean, honestly, if you had to choose between the sound of a properly tuned V12 with a custom exhaust or an electric car that's quite a bit faster on paper but dead silent, what would it be? Let me hear your answers in the comments. Fast forward today, and here we are, taking that legacy and pushing it even further. I'm OJ Lopez, owner and lead technician, and today we're going to show you how we've turned this already ridiculous car into something truly insane. If you're someone interested in taking a car like this and making it even crazier, whether DIY or having a shop like ours do it, this is the build for you. Now, you may remember seeing this car in some of our earlier videos. This S65 AMG was part of our viral "This Will Make Your Exhaust Sound Amazing" megaphone video and our AC Interchiller Bible video. So if those mods already didn't tip you off, this is a pretty serious build at FMU. But with it nearing completion, we thought we'd take a second to highlight the full glory of this project. Now, if you're looking for a luxury land yacht with over 750 ponies, we're gonna give you the recipe on how we got there, along with some pitfalls and things to watch out for along the way. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our builds. Trust me, you're gonna wanna hear this thing when it's done. It might just break the internet. Plus, if you've got an S65 or any other car you're looking to turn into a performance machine, we've got the recipes right here. Now let's get into it. You've got an S65 AMG, you're clearly someone with refined tastes and a healthy disregard for fuel economy. You want something that can carry you and your 3 friends to a car meet, but when you put your foot down, you expect the kind of acceleration that'll make the road buckle. So why settle for stock when you can turn it into a power-packed luxury yacht that's as fast as it is classy? We're nearing the finish line on this particular build, and I'm about to show you why it's not your average S65. We've thrown in some serious turbocharger upgrades, a massive 3.5-inch dual exhaust system because, well, you need to hear this thing roar, and an upgraded cooling system featuring an AC interchiller that keeps intake air temps nice and frosty even when you're pushing it to the limit. If you think you can just slap on a couple of mods and call it a day, you're sorely mistaken. This is how you make a statement on the road. So let's start with what you guys probably know us best for, the exhaust. Now, we built a lot of exhaust system in our time, but this 3.5-inch system for the S65 is something else. It's designed to not just amplify the sound, but to refine it. You want to hear every one of those 12 cylinders sing, not just some muffled rumble in the background. The goal was to create something that didn't just sound good, but under full throttle, it screams like a symphony of horsepower, kind of like a Pagani. Now you remember this exhaust from our megaphone video, but we really didn't get into why we did what we did. So let's do that right now. Now we've been building these exhaust systems since probably about 2009, and you can check our YouTube history if you want to see more. However, when we were playing around, pretty much all of the systems out there were more or less 3-inch. And we knew that this thing, if you opened it up, would probably make more power. So 3.5 is bigger than 3-inch, and we basically tried to find a way to make it fit. Now over the years, the exhaust systems have changed a little bit, chassis to chassis, but if we could fit a 3.5 system on there, we would make almost 20 horsepower more than a 3-inch system when tuning appropriately. So 3.5-inch downpipes from the turbos following all the way down to our X pipe here. Now that allows us to blend both banks, which we then take it and follow along. And this is where we played with what I was talking about in the video, the megaphone. Now, being that we have all this space under here, we were really able to utilize a big megaphone, which helped us get that pitch that sounds much more Pagani-like. However, if you were to go home and watch video clips with no video and just the sound, I think most people would have a hard time picking out a Huayra over any other supercar. They still sound truckish, even though they do sound a little bit better. But if you look at some of their exhaust systems, you'll see they use something a little like this. Bending around the differential here, we go up right to our first resonator, which by necking down in this last spot here, we were able to elect a little bit of drone control, keeping this way in the rear, and the customer's pretty happy. As you know, a turbo is the best muffler, so we really don't need much additional muffling to quiet this thing down. It's mostly just a controlled drone, and the tips are already incorporated in the bumper, so all we had to do is get the pipes there. Next up, let's talk about the AC interchiller. Now, I went into depth in my AC interchiller Bible video recently about a system we installed to keep intake temps under control when that massive V12 is pulling in all the air it can. So if you're looking for more in-depth info, you can check that video out. Hot air, not in this build. We want dense, cold air hitting those turbochargers so you can make real power without worrying about heat soak. Now, an AC interchiller is akin to a battery, where instead of an alternator building charge, it uses the AC compressor to store cooling capacity during times of minimum demand to maximally cool when we stomp on the throttle. So if we were all out on the Autobahn, we would certainly outpace the cooling capacity benefit eventually, but most of us are really only ever doing a few wide OT pulls. And sanctioned straight line racing is what this Super Saloon is really all about. Trust me, it's a game changer when you're pushing maximum boost. If you're an S65 AMG owner, this is one mod you should consider. The gains are real, and so is the cool factor. Now, it's not all fun and games with these V12s. Sure, the powertrains are monsters, and truth be told, they're fairly reliable for a German car. But that means they've still got their quirks. Common issues on the S65, heat management is always a big one, and even more when you mod it. That's why we upgraded the cooling system with the interchiller. Another one, oil leaks. All types are common, and the crank position sensor, the map sensors can be problematic. While the air suspension isn't quite as finicky as the early hydraulic suspension, it's still a point of frustration for owners, including the one that came in with this car. Ignition coils and even the early coil modules are always failing. In fact, that's what brought this barge limping in, multiple misfires related to bad coils and plugs. And of course, once we figured that out and caught up on his maintenance, he got bit by the mod bug, and here we are. So if you're thinking about doing a similar build, you gotta keep those in mind, or better yet, bring it to us and we'll handle it. Speaking of turbochargers, the stock units were, let's just say, adequate. But why settle for adequate when you can go all out? We've swapped the turbos out for a set that can really move some air. The Mercedes-Benz K24 80mm hybrid turbos from NM Turbo Co. A pair of snails with billet 82mm 7x7 compressor wheels, 9-blade turbines, upgraded 360-degree thrust bearings, custom CNC port on the housings, and a balance. The result is enough air for us to have the confidence to shoot somewhere shy of 900 crank. And when we're done, it still needs to be a Mercedes, meaning both street and track use. But these things have massive amounts of torque, like yank the bolts out of my dyno floor massive. Now you might remember when Alex from Legit Street Cars stopped by with his Rentec S-Class AMG 65 Coupe from the auction. So those are the numbers we're looking to beat. All right, we've arrived at a very literal moment of truth, and I've got the dyno run from Alex's Rentec Tune S65 AMG back when we had it here 5 years ago, 2019. It's been a while. But that being said, the goal is to beat this run. Now, the Rentec Tune bumps it up to about 700 horsepower, and that's what we want to be over. Again, I'm shooting for hopefully in the 800s with these turbos, although, you know, we're not 100% sure where this will end up. So we've got the turbos on there. We know that it's going to be capable of producing more boost, more volume of air, but again, we're putting the air into the same manifold through the same intercoolers. Even though we can cool it more, it's not like we can really push a bigger volume of air at the same pressure. We're just able to pressurize the air a little bit quicker with the bigger turbos, and hopefully we should see this thing respond a little differently. I'm hoping to see the horsepower get a little flatter at the end, but we should be able to beat this pretty handily. So let's get in the dyno, figure it out. Now, last thing I'll say is I should be able to run it with the turbos without a tune on there, because even though the turbos are changed, the stock settings are still very much in line with how they were. So even the turbos are capable of more, we're not asking it for more because it's still setting the wastegate at what it was before. So in theory, I should be able to safely run this. We're gonna run it, see what happens, and then I'm gonna throw a file on there, run it again, and see if we can make that power. But we should be pretty close to this number with just the mods that we have on here. So let's find out. Yeah, I don't know what to make of this. I mean, this isn't even what these cars make stock, 422. Now, I don't have any lights on the dash. I don't have any messages. I drove this thing. It didn't feel fast, but I wasn't about to get on it too much because it's untuned. So just kind of cruised it around for a good while, making sure no hoses are blowing off, making sure there's no... But that being said, this is kind of concerning. It runs all the way up there, no fault stored. Let's run it again, see what happens. And, you know, maybe there's something funky going on there. The turbos have new wastegates, so maybe how... But even that, if I have new wastegates, they should be set to how the car comes. So there shouldn't be any additional actuation you have to do for new turbos. That's a problem. All right, let's run it again. And we've got a lambda value of basically 12 to 1, somewhere in that area, a little higher than that, OE, and It looks safe, but the timing and the boost pressure just aren't there. I mean, it starts off at 7 PSI by Redline. That doesn't seem right. I mean, air fuels look safe. Maybe I got to run it a few times. I've already set it up. I've already kind of made sure it's not going to bounce forward and back. Should be warm and ready to go. All right, let's run it again. That's pretty good. I mean, I got cooler air intake temps, but the number again, pretty disappointing. I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. You always got to think back to something you did, what we could have done, but typically you'd see a check engine light with some sort of fault or something not reading right. I really got to think pretty carefully here to try to come up with what could be causing this car just to not make power without any faults. And judging by some of those boost readings that we were seeing, it looks like it was struggling to make boost up until redline, like it was really kind of working. That concerns me, and I'm wondering if there's some sort of additional setup we need to do with these turbos. I don't typically like to touch them because when you get aftermarket turbos, they're usually dialed into the pressures that the turbo rebuilders set them to. So it's hard to know exactly how they want them set up versus how it was set up stock. And that's something that typically if there's a problem, we'll have to go back in there and try to see if there's an adjustment there. But if they send it to us and they've rebuilt something, we just leave it alone. Hopefully that's not the issue because those guys are kind of hard to get to. I mean, a boost leak usually, I mean, it's possible, but we should see a correlation fault. You know, I think I'm going to check the lines, but this is pretty disappointing. I thought we had this car done. You know, I'll look for a maybe a boost line that popped off, something like that, but I thought we were wrapping this thing up, so let's see what we can figure out. This thing is just not making the boost that I'm expecting it to see, and that's a problem. We've got these bigger turbos in here, and again, we're gonna be looking for something that we did to this thing because we had this engine all apart. However, I just feel like I would have seen a boost manifold pressure mismatch fault at some point in the past week when we were driving this thing. I mean, it's been together now for a little while. And none of those faults are setting. Not really seeing anything like that. So, you know, as far as what I can get done, trying to figure this out to finish this video, I'm kind of out of options, which means we're going to have to leave in a cliffhanger. But that's okay, because we're going to figure this thing out. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to smoke this thing, try to see if we have any boost leaks going on. And again, this system's real short, so it should be pretty obvious. I mean, the turbos are sitting right down there. They go right up to the intercoolers up there, and then right down into the intake manifold. So if we've got a boost leak, it should be pretty evident, but everything looks tight. I just checked it over. I'm worried that we're going to have to play around with the wastegates, which is, again, something I don't like to do. So let's get this off the dyno, and we're going to have to check it out. But you're going to have to find out next week when we get back at this thing, get it on the dyno and see if we can get this thing figured out. Sometimes in the world of professional wrenching, things just don't go the way you want them to. And that's exactly what happened here today with this S65 when I got it on the dyno. Everything felt good. We thought we were going to make big numbers, and here we are scratching our heads as to what could be going on. But don't fear, whether it be a project that we're taking on or your project at home, we've got the tenacity to stick to it and find out what's going on. And we know we'll get this thing making those numbers that we all want to see. But I guess that's it for this video. Leave a comment below and tell us what you think might be going on. But make sure you're subscribed because we got more exciting content, including us figuring out what's going on. But you'll have to wait till next time.